Well, welcome to an optimistic Golden State Warriors version of the Cochrane Show here tonight. My name is John Cochrane. That is Lauren Anderson. Lauren, I am so hyped about this Warriors team right now.
I'm laughing, man, because every week we're either high as high or we're low as low. And that's the Warriors roller coaster in 2025, 2026, baby.
It's like an unstable relationship where you're on and off again. And when you're on, it's great. When you're off, it's horrible.
It's true. It's true. And you know what? It is great to see the Warriors beating some teams handedly, like Charlotte. That was a hard game to watch only because there are parts of that Charlotte team that I just find very difficult to watch. They're not a great team, but it was good to see us finally get a double digit win and see the bench increasing the lead when Steph Curry was off the floor. And I did notice they started to change the way they played in terms of attacking, and even with Jimmy Butler out, that was a really encouraging sign for them. But to be able to beat the Knicks with the star out, I think, wow, finally the monkey's off the back. They're able to do this. And
They broke the curse.
that was, my goodness, that was a fast-paced game. Holy. Those guys were tired by the end of the game. Jeez, they went at it. And you know what? I think that game against the Knicks was a massive confidence boost because it could have gone a lot of different ways there, but they seemed to be able to break it open in the fourth and hang on. Um,
Yeah. Hey, can we pause on that game? Let's talk about that Knicks game real quick because I was worried, right? The Knicks are coming off of a thrashing against the Kings. It's a back-to-back. They don't have Brunson. They're playing with house money, and they were embarrassed. Like, the Kings are horrible, and the Knicks are meant to be a good team. And so I thought the Knicks were going to come out flying, which they did, and the Warriors were struggling. That first unit did not play well. They were down, 12 points, 15 points, and they cut it to 5 because of the Jimmy Butler, Podziemski, Melton, Horford, and Peyton lineup. Like, that lineup has just, it's so reassuring knowing that, A, when you have a lead, they're not going to give up a lead, but also, if your starters come out flat, which the older guys sometimes do, you've got this secret weapon coming off the bench that is going to get you back in the game.
yeah, I think Pods has put together a couple games now where he's just been clutch, making really good decisions. It doesn't seem like he's rushing the basketball, and yet he's also calling his own number in a way that's making him very effective. And to see him do that against the New York team, and granted Brunson is out, but you still have to deal with Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges. You've got Anunoby running, on that,
Yeah.
you know, it,
You got
yeah,
Cat
it's
out there still, Carl Anthony Towns.
that's right. It's a dangerous team. It's a very dangerous team. And so the effort was there. It seems like there's a renewed focus. It's almost like there's a determination to not let the Jonathan Kuminga situation take over the narrative of the team. And I'm so glad that we're sitting here prioritizing talking about the way in which this Warriors team is playing basketball rather than the sideshow that has followed them. So yeah, that
That's
Knicks
right.
game was really fun.
And then they've had a string of games here where they dominated the Hornets. They're not like they beat the brakes off of the Nuggets today. Nuggets don't have Jokic, but they also beat the Oklahoma City Thunder, which I've been following it's been way too important in my brain this year that the Warriors 73-9 is going to be intact. There's no way that the Thunder are going to reach that record. So we can hang on to nostalgia and vindication that that's the greatest team ever to play in the regular season. But
It's really easy to talk big before you get into the dog days, right? Jimmy Butler talking about that, like the hardest games in the NBA are games like 40 to 60, when you just got to slog wins and get them out. And it looks like, OKC has really been affected by some winteritis and, lost some surprising games in the midst of this time of the season. But you're right. The record is intact. There's no way OKC is going to go on a bender. They just look completely invincible at the start of the year. And surprise, surprise, maybe they'll recover a little bit more of that poise later on. But that's the beauty of the NBA is the teams are going to try and, start to figure out what it is that you're doing that's making you so effective, and they're going to exploit it. There's some smart people in the league.
Yeah, that's right. Like SGA, he's going to get his numbers. He's going to continue to get his fouls and whatnot. But I think teams are just figuring out how to stop the rest of the gang. Like you can let SGA try and beat you on his own. You just got to stop Chet and J Dub and the rest of that deep team. I'm just looking at the Western Conference standings here, Lauren.
If
The
we can
Warriors.
before we do, if we can go back to that Charlotte Warriors game, I've been pretty down on Charlotte for a while, but there was two standouts there. Brandon Miller, he is a baller. He is an absolute baller, and I hope that he gets his shoulder right because he looked like he was wearing football pads out there. Like he just had so much tape around that shoulder, and good on him for getting out and playing. But I hope that he can get healthy so that we can continue to see what his ceiling is in this league because he's a fun player to watch. And that rookie they got out of Duke, Knuppel,
Knappel.
tell me in the comments if I'm saying it wrong. It wouldn't be the first time. But man, he's going to be fun too. He's shooting at a high clip, and I didn't realize how big he is. Like watching him at a Duke, he didn't seem like he was a full 6'8", but out there on the other day when they played the Warriors, wow. He's going to be an interesting player to watch. Just really solid, smart basketball player and just lights out from beyond the arc. Wow.
100%. He's 6'8" and thick. Like he's not a skinny 6'8".
No, no, not at all. No, he's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, the Hornets, they've got a hopefully a bright future, and it's sort of what the Utah Jazz have to figure out. Like at some point you got to figure out who is your guy that you're going to build around. LaMelo wasn't him. Like LaMelo is not the player to build your franchise around. He's good to be on your team, but I think Miller and Knipple are two players that you can start to build that core nucleus. But and so yeah, they're pivoting to having a different foundation, different way of playing basketball than they did when LaMelo was sort of the man.
Yeah. Yeah. And what did you think before we go on to the next topic? What did you think about Colin Sexton just following Steph like a puppy around the court?
Look, because the other because the other players on the Warriors were actually hitting shots, it's like, why are you doing this? But that's been effective for stopping the Warriors. It's what Houston does. Like there are certain teams, Sacramento used to do this. I don't know if they still do, but there are certain teams that just say, we are going to even play like a box and one where you're zone, but you're just manning on Steph, or you're just going to have a guy on him from the time the ball gets inbounds, no matter where he is on the court, you have somebody spooning him the whole way down the floor. It didn't work this game, but it did take Steph out of the game, right? 14 points. He's still, really, you're not taking him out of the game, are you, though? Like, you are making 4-on-4 is a lot more space than 5-on-5 is, and you're just creating mismatches everywhere.
And that's what he said in the post game interview, too, right? He's talking about how you can do that, but it's not like he's going to get in his own head. He's seen everything. And so you do this, he's got a counter to it. And so, you're going to follow him. He'll walk out the tunnel and see if you're going to chase him. Like, how dedicated are you to this game plan? And like you said, it just makes the game a lot easier for D'Anthony Melton and Podziemski and everybody else. So, you know what? I was sitting there. Here's the last thing I'll say about this game. I was watching Kuminga on the bench, and credit where credit is due. The man has integrity. I don't know if it's just for the cameras or what, but Draymond Green has been razzing him up and just talking about how good he is on the bench. And I just thought, man, that it'd just be such a hard situation. But he was cheering his guys. He was standing for dunks. He was communicating like a positive energy on the side of the bench. I was really hopeful that at one point Kerr would just throw him out because like Pat Spencer and all those guys are getting garbage minutes. The game's been decided. It would have been fantastic to see him get a run and a windmill jam just to, get the tension out. But I'm sure we'll
I
talk
don't
about
even
it.
I don't
But
even think Kuminga's warmed up to get out there. I was listening to one of the beat reporters in Golden State, and they were saying that he comes out like for the pregame warmups, a minute before the national anthem, takes one shot and plays soccer. Like he is not in an actual physical state to get into the game.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But no, I agree with what you're saying though, with him being on the bench and being a team player. Like, I don't think, and I'm not knocking him on this. I just think that's the understanding that there is between him and Kerr. Like, he is not, and Dunleavy, like he is not going on the floor. We are not risking our trade asset that may not be too much of an asset at this point. National media loves just destroying the Warriors on how, and they haven't handled this Kuminga situation really well, but I also think they're, and you can have a different opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. I think people have a false image of what this guy's ceiling actually is.
False in a good way or false in a bad
No,
way?
I think people are talking about Kuminga like he is a superstar. He's I don't know. I don't think he is. I think he can do a couple of things and he can dunk the ball, but in terms of making like intelligent plays or even being the main guy when you're game planned against, I don't know. I just think maybe the highlight on him might not be doing any good for anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. And this is, I think, the part that is just really tough to find out. We've seen flashes of brilliance. We've also seen, we've seen him average or 27 over a sustained amount of time, but we've also seen like repeated just plays where it's not in the game plan. It's not in, the rhythm of how the Warriors want to play. There's clips where you see Steph's and Draymond's like physical frustration, Jimmy Butler's physical frustration. They've had a long time to try and figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's wild. I've seen everything from Tracy McGrady talk and Austin Rivers talking about how great this basketball player is, right through to Zach Lowe being a little bit more pessimistic about the whole situation. I hope for his sake that he can get to a team where he gets the minutes and he's able to prove everybody wrong, that he's got a high ceiling and he lives up to it. That would be amazing. And sometimes you just need the right situation coach to get it out of you. But it's just there's too many flags, I think, in this instance. And I think, unfortunately, they've shot themselves in the foot. The Warriors have no leverage here. And it's going to take a really, specific situation for a team to take a chance because there's enough evidence to say that this is not a good idea at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And this sort of transitions to what I want to talk about here for a minute. And I want to talk about the importance of the third player in the starting lineup because
Yeah.
this third player makes the Warriors offense almost unguardable. It is just, yes, sometimes they struggle on defense, but you've obviously got Steph Curry, who's creating the gravity. You've got Draymond Green, who's reading the defense. And then you've got what used to be Klay Thompson, right now is Moses Moody. And if that guy last
Yeah.
year, if you remember,
Mel-
that was, yeah, Melton. But last year, that was Buddy Hield when they started. And like the Warriors could not lose if that guy was making shots. Recently, but Moses Moody has been on a heater. They are not losing if that third guy is making shots just because there's so much motion and there's so much gravity with Steph. The other two players on the floor, they're there to screen to get these guys open. But that third player is so important. And I think if Moody's going to continue playing the way he's playing in the last 5 games, he's not very consistent, but let's just say for the last 5 games. And if Melton keeps playing this way, the Warriors are dangerous. Like nobody wants to see this team playing at their peak level in a playoff series because
I agree.
if
I
that
agree.
third player is hot, I mean,
Yeah. I
I feel
think,
confident.
when I was watching Charlotte, there were moments where I was thinking to myself, is Moody on the floor? Like, is it, or there was one point in the third quarter where I just kind of zoned out for a second. I was like, hang on, is Moody on the injury report? And then I looked and I was like, oh, yeah, he's hit a 3 here so far. And I just think he can disappear for long stretches of the time on offense and defense. And then all of a sudden, it just gets really handsy and a little bit over aggressive. and he's picking up some cheap fouls. But then he's hitting clutch 3-pointers and bringing some really good hype. And I hope that we can see a little bit more consistency through that in terms of just those high effort defensive plays and a little bit more self control on the defensive end in particular. It seems to me like he, not so much Podziemski, but certainly Moody, it's almost like he's taken an extra second to think through what the right read is. And I think maybe in the earlier part of this year, they were playing a little bit faster and maybe, going to the shot a little bit quicker. Maybe there's something there to it. But you're right. When he can hit 1 3 per quarter, 4 threes a game, that's 12 extra points. That's a big difference maker. And if you're getting 30 and 20 from Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry, that's 60. You're 65 points from three guys, and that's a different equation. Yeah, it really makes a difference. But when these guys are ice cold, that's where the Warriors can't win, right? Is that you're relying on Steph to have a Herculean impact. You're relying on Jimmy Butler to try and fill the minutes while Steph is resting. But then who else? And you almost can guard the team man to man and not have to worry about any doubles. And then they're really tough to beat just because they're undersized, like we've talked about previously.
Yeah, it's very hard for them to win, but I do like how they have that option. And I think Steph and Jimmy are very good at reading the game, right? And specifically Steph, knowing what the game demands of him. Like if these players know, if he can see that Quentin Post has it going, or Moody has it going, or Melton, Steph is fine to score 20 points in a game. Like he's not sweating his stats, he's not sweating his numbers. He will just play, he'll get his cardio in and he will just play his role in the offense. But if he sees that Moody and Post and all these players are bricking shots and airballing and the bright lights are too bright, then you see Steph go into this like these Curry Flurries and take over the game. So having that optionality where the offense doesn't so heavily revolve around Curry getting all of like your points or scoring 35 every game, I think that's a huge benefit for this team.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, and I think, you look around like OKC, of course they've got Shea, but then they've got J-Dub and Chet. Those are your big three. AJ Wilson has been playing pretty good recently. He's been hitting some big shots. So like you say, that you got to have options going deeper down the bench in order to make a bigger impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that there's too many teams in the West that are super excited or penciling in, a position where they want to see the Warriors. I really hope that the Warriors can get themselves out of the play-in. It seems like the Lakers are falling. I think Phoenix is a little bit hit and miss anymore. But the two hottest teams in the NBA right now over the last 10 games, what's your guess?
I don't have to guess. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay, the Los
Yeah.
Angeles Clippers and the Blazers. So it's heating up. This competition is heating up in the West. The Warriors can't afford to miss out on too many more close games. Like it's going to come down to the wire. You hope that the Lakers continue to fall. You hope that the Clippers are temporary and Kawhi gets hurt, which is not out of the realm of possibilities. You hope that the Blazers will be without Avdija for a little bit longer, but they've been playing some great basketball, and Drew Holiday's back in the mix now. And when's Lillard come back? You don't know. So it's tight contest.
Well, speaking of Kawhi Leonard, I saw that he's heading back. They're on a road trip. He's heading back to LA for missing the next 2 games with an injury. You never know with him, right? Like he's just you just don't know if he's in the lineup. But yeah, so I'm looking at the standings here. I'll just read 8th to 5th because that's sort of where this log jam is currently. In 5th place is the Rockets at 25 and 15. They're 5-5 in their last 10. Like there's a little bit of slippage. And Steven Adams, that's a huge injury. If he's done some significant damage to his knee, that's a big injury for the Rockets. Like
Yeah.
their offense is get offensive rebounds and get second chance opportunities. So that could be huge. The Lakers are in 6th with 25 and 16. The Suns are in 7th with 25 and 17. And then the Warriors are 24 and 19. So it's pretty. Warriors are 7 and 3 in their last 10. Out of those teams, they're the hottest. They've got the best records. Yeah, they're just
Here,
going to continue to inch their way up.
here's the difference for me, I think, with the Warriors and some of those other teams you mentioned. If I was OKC or even Minnesota, I would be kind of hoping that I would be playing Phoenix early in the playoffs. I'd be hoping I'd be playing the Blazers early on the playoffs. Certainly, I'd be hoping I could get a series against either, yeah, and maybe even the Los Angeles Lakers. Those would be the three teams that I'd be like, yeah, I think I feel a little bit more confident against those teams. I would not want to be playing Steph. I would not want to be playing Harden and Kawhi in a 7 round series, and I sure as heck don't want to be playing the Rockets because you're going to be playing bully ball, and if it's a long series, you'll end up like the Warriors last year, where you're just going to be licking your wounds for the first couple of games in the second round. Yeah, you don't want to get into a situation where it's between a hammy and the next round. You don't want to do that to your team.
Yeah, well, hopefully I 100% agree with you. I hope the Warriors don't have to be perfect for the last 30 games of the season like they did last year. Like they were playing playoffs 2 months before the playoffs actually started. So, out of those teams, just this is completely hypothetical based off what we see right now. What of the top 4 would you hope the Warriors match up with in the first round? We're getting way ahead of ourselves. We're not even at the All-Star break, but this is just for kicks and giggles. You got the Thunder, Spurs, Nuggets, Timberwolves. Assume that Jokic is in the game.
Yeah, of course. I think it's the Nuggets and the Timberwolves, to be honest. I think the Thunder match up really, really well against OKC, and they have made it really explicit this season, and they played the Warriors. And I don't want a bar of this Spurs team, like not a bar of it. You know,
None?
that I know that Draymond Green can do a good job against Victor Wembanyama, but have you seen how these guys are playing recently? Did you watch that game between the Spurs and the Timberwolves the other night?
I did, yeah.
Whoa. Anthony Edwards goes off for a career best 55. In the fourth quarter, it felt like the rim was 10 feet wide. He was throwing it in from anywhere. He looked like he was just prime alpha mode. And anytime he did, they got the ball to Wemby and he just answered. I was just like, my goodness. But it's not just Wemby. Wemby gives that rest of that team so much confidence. And they are fighters, man. They are such a fun team to watch. And Fox was Mr. Clutch like only 3 years ago. He had the most clutch baskets in the NBA. And man, as the Warriors, as an undersized team, I don't want Post and Draymond Green having to figure out what they're going to do with Victor the whole game. Like that team scares me. And we've had some close games against the Nuggets. We've even beat the Nuggets a couple of times this year. And granted, the whole team wasn't healthy, and Aaron Gordon, one hand, had a good miracle game while Murray was sitting out, and then vice versa. But yeah, I think I would rather play against an inconsistent Anthony Edwards, who may or may not show up a little bit more because it's Steph and because it's Draymond and the Olympic rivalry sort of stuff. And I'd certainly, despite the fact that Jokic is an absolute wizard, those other two, I think, are better teams.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing on the Nuggets is Aaron Gordon gives the Warriors problems, like just his size and his aggression. He's one of my There's those players in the league that you just wish could be on your team. Aaron Gordon is one of those guys. I just as a player and how he's changed his career, I just really admire that. But it's like back to what you're
That's the perfect third guy.
yeah. Kuminga needs to do what Gordon has done.
Yeah.
Not to bring back Kuminga in this conversation, but I want to talk about the Spurs.
If you're listening, please.
I want to talk about the Spurs for a sec. It's like the team realized they have a top 3 player in the NBA, and if you give him the ball, you have a good chance at winning. I watched this team last year, and the amount of times Wemby is running down the lane like this, wide open, like, give me the ball. And it's just like, no, we're going to give it to somebody else that's got tight coverage because you're getting too much possession. Like, it almost, I'm not saying players were actually thinking that, but it just, they weren't giving him the ball in great opportunities. But this year, it seems like those players aren't playing as much. Is there rookie? Is it Castle? Is he yeah?
Oh,
Or is he
is he?
as a second year?
I thought Dylan Harper was their rookie this year.
Dylan Harper, sorry, you're right. Dylan Harper. They've got these players that are all like these fast, quick guards that can score with the best of them, but also recognize the importance of having one of the best players in the NBA engaged in the game. Like, you're right. The Spurs are just a scary team.
I think one of the differences is too that Wemby's the kind of superstar that's coming off the bench and he's not bitching about it.
Yeah.
We were talking about this earlier in the year. He's going to have a really interesting career just because of his body shape and the demands of the NBA. He might be the greatest player to never qualify for a defensive award, an MVP award, or like all NBA, right? Because he should be a lock for all of those things, but he's probably going to have to rest significantly over the season. And I don't know how many games he's missed this year yet, but it'll be touch and go. The kid is so competitive, like so competitive, and understands the moment, and he seems like wise beyond his years. He's now like Zen Wemby with this shaved head, and it seems like the team is rallying around him, and he is really taking on like trying to build up the crowd, getting this special like fan base going in San Antonio, and just owning his identity. And last year, what was it? Sochan was or Jeremy Sohan was the guard for a lot of that, and it seems like he had some of that energy and hoped like he was going to be that guy, right? He's now off the bench and is not starting, but Castle, Harper, Sochan, like and Vassell, those
Fox.
guys, Fox, wow. It's almost like they've come into like an awareness of who they are as a team. I wish that Wemby didn't have that tragedy at for the NBA Cup game because he just was not himself that night, and it was really unfortunate. He played well, but you could see he was somewhere else. But yeah, that this team is a really interesting because top to bottom, and in true Spurs fashion, when they tank perfectly. And now they're back to NBA relevancy in a way where, I can't tell you who's going to come out of the Western Conference this year because there's great arguments for OKC. There's great arguments for the Spurs. There's phenomenal arguments for the Nuggets. And then there's some secondary arguments for even like Houston could be a dark horse to surprise some people, and the Timberwolves as well. And of course, because it's us, the Warriors are going to be in the Knicks.
I'd say you're missing a very important team here.
Yeah, no way, we can't forget them. But the West is stacked, and we said earlier in the year, Spurs are like must watch basketball, especially when Victor is on the floor. It's just
It's
there's so
phenomenal.
much to like culture, talent, aggression, integrity. I love them.
I want to talk one more Warriors topic, and then I want to head out east, if that's all right. I want to talk about Melton a little bit more. I feel like we've just brushed over him, but since we last recorded, he's been putting up some phenomenal numbers. His finishing around the rim, especially with his left hand, is crazy. Like, his left-handed sort of off the top of the backboard feather finishes above an outstretched arm of a big man. He's just aggressive. He looks athletic. The knee doesn't look like it's bothering him at all. But most importantly, he's found his 3-point shot. And it just takes this team to that next level. Like, he's just taken the floor of the team and the ceiling of the team to a whole new level.
I agree. And I think this is what we were all waiting for. This is what we saw early on last year before he got injured, right? And that recalibrated everything. And, when he was playing well, but he healed was a little bit more free to do what Buddy Hield does. The other thing that I like about Melton is just how aggressive he is. And it looked like Miles Bridges was getting after him a little bit, particularly in that third and fourth quarter. Like, I think the NBA cameras wish that they had the mics turned down a little bit because there was some really colorful language. But anytime Miles Bridges went at him, Melton was straight back at him on the other side. And as you say, finishing strong. I like Melton. I think he was a solid role player for the 76ers, and the Warriors have really caught a good break with him. I really appreciate that he's healthy, and I hope that he can keep doing what he's doing because you're right. It gives, you know, on any given night, if you need Pods, if you need Melton, if you need, who's going to be that third guy for you? If it's not Draymond, if he's having a Draymond night, if Melton can play this consistently, like you said, both the ceiling and the floor, it's a different team. And like you say, we've won 10 out of the last 14. That's a good spread. I hope we can keep doing it.
I've been so impressed. I'm just trying to look at the stats of it. I feel like the plus minus of the Melton, and I don't want to gloss over Will Richard either, the rookie. He has stepped in and played amazingly.
How much does Will Richard look like a young Russell Westbrook with that new haircut?
With the short hair. Well, first, I'm glad he's got the short hair. It looks much better. Yeah, he does. You're right. It's his long lost brother. But that lineup must have a huge plus minus in these last 10 games. I don't think they're losing many possessions. And I don't know. I just think it's one of the best bench units. Obviously, Jimmy Butler's not a bench player, but he mans that unit. I think it's got to be one of the best second units in the NBA right now. I can't think of many other.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to compare. Yeah, it'd be interesting to compare that against OKC just because they're just so loaded and have just so many numbers at each position. But you're right. You're right. It's not for lack of talent, on this Warriors roster. I think we have been unlucky injury wise, and to see it coming together, hopefully it can stay together for the next the next few months. But it certainly feels like it's so doom and gloom with them anymore. Like, was it a month ago, just before Christmas? It just felt like, just the post game interviews, the close losses, the Kuminga situation. It just seems like there were so many things going on that just gave cause for a little bit of worry if you're a bit of a fan. Hey, like you're just sitting there thinking, man, like just if anything, you remember
More
the
than
strength
worry.
you remember the strength in numbers, you remember the joy that this team used to play with. And you're like, where is it? Where is it? I used to watch basketball Australian afternoons, and for the rest of my evening, I'd be smiling because not only did I witness a miracle, but the joy just like emanated over the airwaves, and it was
Contagious.
so fun to watch. Yeah. So I want that back. I want that back for them because it looks like they have more fun when they play that way too.
I don't know if you do this, but every now and then, especially when it's doom and gloom, I'll throw on a YouTube montage highlight of the good old days. I'll watch highlights of 2014 to 2019 and, the Klay Thompson 37 points in a quarter. They scored 51 points in the third quarter against the Clippers once. I like to go back to those less complicated, less emotional days. But hey, this is what sports is all about. It's why I love sports. You are on the mountaintops and you're in the valleys and you just go where the team takes you, but you don't abandon shit.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So in the East, Lauren, I want to talk about the Celtics if we can here for a minute, because everyone, including myself at the beginning of the year, thought this might be I think you might have zagged on this, if I remember correctly, that you thought maybe they would not be as bad as people were saying, but this was a selling year, right? They got rid of Porzingis. Tatum's got the Achilles injury. They bring in Simons, and I don't think many people took this team too seriously, but they have surpassed expectations. They're second in the East at 26-15, and they could get Tatum back this year. That's amazing. Jaylen Brown, I apologize. I called Jaylen Brown a few weeks ago I think I said something along the lines of he needs to step up and show that you're really a star and worth that $50 million contract that you got. My goodness, you shut everybody up. You shut myself up because he is balling.
If I'm not mistaken, you did that on a night when he had just scored 35. But you know what? How smart do the Celtics look? How many games has Porzingis played, and how big of an impact has he had on this Atlanta Hawks team?
Yeah. Yeah. None.
You know, so to get off that contract, to take a flyer on Simmons, who wasn't he the Eastern Conference Player of the Week or of the month or
You need
something
to
like
do
that?
yourself a favor. If you haven't watched the Celtics versus Heat game, watch the third quarter, Anthony Simons. Oh my
Mm,
goodness. Just automatic. They were down by like 12, and he just goes on this 15-0 run all by himself, just taking contested step back shots. It was crazy.
yeah. It's almost as though they've had a look at this Eastern Conference and said, "Hey, we can get out of the second round, you know, guaranteed." And if you can get yourself in a position to be in the Eastern Conference Finals, you know, anything can happen, right? And Jaylen Brown has been one of, if not the best player in the NBA this year, consistently carrying this team and making sure that everybody's not talking about hair, but talking about, you know, or lack thereof, and
Not talking
talking about,
about Nike, not talking about hair, just talking about not the Olympics, just his
yeah.
game.
And this is, you know, Boston Celtics super fan Bill Simmons had an interesting, you know, question of like, how much do they rush Jayson Tatum back to get in the mix? And you know, it seems like the medical sort of processes and technology these days, guys are coming back from significant injuries way faster. So it seems like he's ahead of schedule. But you look at it and you almost think there's no need. They've got the second seed, you know, by a game and a half on the Knicks. Um, they're the hottest team in the East right now with the Cavs, who seem to have turned a corner here. And so a top four spot for them is not out of the ordinary, which means that, you know, they'll be looking at playing probably the Pistons or the Knicks in the second round, depending on where they fall in that. But they might even be carrying home court advantage into this, which would just be phenomenal for a team that everybody thought would be tanking at the end of last year. And you think, wow, wow.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to rush Tatum back like you were saying, but he could come back towards the end of the year and play a Robin role. Like, you don't really need to mess with what's happening. You don't need to put on too much responsibility onto his shoulders where he's got to carry the team. That's not really who Tatum is in general, but just
He
come.
didn't like it for Team USA, that's for sure. But I think if you're coming back from a big injury and you haven't played for most of the year, then what a luxury to come in and to warm yourself up and not
Yeah.
have to, you know, you'd hate to be in a position like Clay Thompson was, where he was just trying to force himself to be somebody he wasn't ready to be. And, you know, now where the lights are off in Dallas, he's stringing together some fantastic games again. It can be a little bit hit and miss, but that's to be expected at this stage of his career. Whereas Jalen is significant, or Tatum is significantly younger. And so you'd hope that he'd play himself into shape. But, you know, on their last championship, you had Batman and Robin. And if they were to go Batman and Robin the other way, there would be something really poetic and symbolic about that. And I think it would just that could potentially be the greatest run in Celtics history. You know, it just in that regard with the storylines there. And I'm sure you all in the comments are gonna have way more stories about that. But I
Like,
think that there's a
well,
lot of
yeah,
value.
Bill Russell or something. I think that might have been the greatest run in Celtics, but I
No,
understand
but
what
you
you're
know what I'm
saying.
talking about. You know what I'm talking about in terms of like just the way in which two alpha players have been able to exist on the same team. You know, Bill Simmons was talking 2 years ago, 3 years ago, certainly after the Warriors beat them in the finals. We'll remind everybody about that. Bill Simmons, the media, they were talking about, is
Splitting
it
them
the
up.
right move to trade Jaylen Brown? And now he has proved everybody wrong. Everybody wrong.
Yeah.
That's Impressive.
He was, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but he was the finals MVP when they won the championships, carrying this team to I haven't watched Jayson Tatum play without Jaylen Brown, but we've got evidence of Jaylen Brown playing without Jayson Tatum, and they're managing well. I wanna sort of talk about this as we transition to just off the court to the front office. These teams, you mentioned the Spurs, they didn't have a super long dog years, right? They didn't rebuild or tank for too long. They went through the Pops and Tim Duncan and Ginobili team. That came to an end. Kawhi was meant to be the successor. He left. But these organizations that tend to never be bad for too long. I think there is something to be said. It's like the New England Patriots, right? They had like a 20-year run. It was unbelievable how these NFL Patriots performed with Tom Brady. And then they had about 6 years where they haven't been great. That's not very long in sports worlds where you're one of the best teams of all time, you're a dynasty. To go from dynasty to you have a real opportunity to make the Super Bowl again 6 years later with a completely different cast of characters, like, that's unheard of. And the Spurs are one of those teams in the NBA. The Celtics seem to be one of those teams in the NBA where they haven't been bad for my whole life. Like, they have always been in the mix. The Lakers, they had some pretty bad years after Kobe, but they are blessed with superstars just coming to them with trade proposals like any Luka, ridiculous. But and then you've got teams, Lauren, like that haven't been good for my entire life of watching basketball. Like the Wizards' best years were with John Wall. I think they made the first round once or twice. So I'll give that to them. The Hornets have been a laughing stocks. These teams that just are always bad. The Pelicans, my goodness, you've got players that the NBA, other NBA teams would love to have, but you're hogging them to your 10-35 record. I just wanted to talk a little bit about like the
Free Trey
importance.
Murphy the third.
Exactly, yeah. You can keep Zion, just give us Trey.
That's right. Please keep Zion.
I think there is something about how teams are structured, whether it's from the owners or the GMs or the president of operations or the coaching. There's just these teams that never seem to be bad for too long.
Yeah. What do you think the reason behind it is? Some of it, of course, is going to be the location. Los Angeles is always going to have a big market team. New York is always going to have a big market team. But then again, New York have been a horrendous team for so much of our lives. And yeah, they had the Carmelo years and they've had good players and Patrick Ewing and so forth, but they've never got over the hump. And
Yeah.
for long periods of time, they've been pretty dreadful. Yeah. Do you think it all comes down to interior management? Do you think it all comes down to location? Do you think there's a little bit of luck involved? In some ways, does the legacy sort of build upon itself? And then you're just selecting, and people are self-nominating because they want to be the next carriers of the legacy. And that's a certain kind of person that takes that on as well. Like Trey Young going to with the Wizards to try and build a new franchise or whatever. If he fails, yeah, nobody's going to be on him. Like he came in, tried, and we'll pat him on the back for having a crack at it and say he never gets to the playoffs for the rest of his career. Well, he's going to have some fun moments and some fun games. Same sort of thing like LaMelo Ball down in Charlotte. But then there's guys who are like, no, I want to put a city, a reputation, a legacy on my back. And I understand the kind of system that comes. And I wonder if that just filters down like top to bottom from ownership, leadership, competitive, like, you know, the business guys that are running Wall Street and Silicon Valley are a little bit different to the guys who are, potentially, you know, I don't know, throw out a name somewhere. I'm not trying to disparage cities or anything like that, but it's just a different culture. Like it just is a different kind of energy. And I, yeah, what do you think?
I think there's three things that come to mind that makes an organization be consistent over time in basketball. Number one is luck. I think luck with your like injuries and for instance, like Greg Oden, that was just unfortunate, right? Unlucky. Like the Portland got Brandon Roy, same team, unlucky. Luck is involved. SGA turning into the player that he is for the Thunder right now when he was just sort of an add-on into that deal. Like that's a little bit, yeah, there's player development, but you had some luck there. So luck is number one, or not in a order, but it's on the list. Number two, I think these organizations have patience. I don't think they look at a couple losing seasons as the be all end all and they fire their coach right away. I think they can see the bigger picture. Like these teams that keep their coaches for long periods of time seem to have more stability in the organization, which creates culture, right? You can't create culture when you've got 5 coaches in 8 years on your team. It just doesn't work. So luck, patience, and I just think having a system. I think having a system is really important that you're drafting into. Like you know the type of players that you want to have and it's not just about their talent, but you're looking at their character, you're looking at their IQ, like having this system that they can draft into I think is really important. Veteran leadership, yeah, just all of the not just what is produced on the floor but sort of the behind the scenes type stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're right. It is impressive when you see like the way in which the Thunder have been organized. Yes, it's luck, but the fact that they have that many draft picks, that seems like it's shrewd management, and that's pretty amazing for them.
Yeah.
I think there are
I
places
want
that
to
will naturally
table the
have a
Warriors for this next comment because when you have a generational Hall of Fame superstar like Steph Curry, you'll understand what I'm saying, but table that team. I also think teams that know when to pivot too early rather than too late. So I don't think the Warriors can do it too late because I think they can still maximize what they have with Curry. But I think when other teams sort of don't know when it's time to pivot off their current plan and they're just sort of left in mediocrity for too long.
yeah.
So
Which will be interesting to see what then LeBron does with Los Angeles, because it seems like whether that landed in their lap by accident or they were able to manipulate that into existence, they've begun the pivot, and it just see how long he wants to ride with it. But like you said, having a superstar, just ready to go, that's super helpful too.
yeah, the one team that grinds my gears, and I've talked about it before, that must, I don't know, they're not what we're talking about, is the Sacramento Kings. My goodness. They're just the opposite of what we're talking about. No patience. You had a coach of the year. Now let's get rid of him. You had a clutch player of the year. Now let's trade him. You had like this really fun light the beam nucleus. No, they didn't know how to handle success.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's too bad that yeah, those Sacramento fans, they've been struggling for a long time. There's not really much good coming out of there. And you just hope that they can free Sabonis so he can play meaningful minutes somewhere else. But that must be such a tension, man. Like you get into basketball because you're competitive and you want to win basketball games. And I can't think of one friend that I played basketball with when I was a kid that dreamed about $100 million contract. Nobody talked about that. Every single kid dreams about being the guy that hits the game winning shot on the finals to win the championship. So that part of you is still alive. And then to be in a situation where you're like, yeah, okay, $100 million will be changing not just my generation, but the next couple ones to come. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. That must be such a tough decision because you got to fit your life salary into this hopefully like 8 to 15-year window, right?
Yeah. It might this wouldn't be a Cochrane show without a little bit of a Ben Simmons jab. I don't know if Ben Simmons was ever thinking about winning the final shot in the finals or if he was just going for the money.
Well, did you hear what Rich Paul said?
About explain it. I did, but you explain it.
As in, like, Ben Simmons got everything that Ben Simmons wanted. He wanted to be a number one pick. He wanted to be rookie of the year, and he wanted a max extension. So yes, the money was really important.
Yeah.
And I think, hearing what's it, Knoppel talk about it on the Bill Simmons show the other day, just how intense the grind is of playing 82 games a year, not including playoffs. And that is a lot. Like outside of hockey, basketball, and baseball, I can't think of another sport that plays that many games. Like it's just phenomenal. Maybe some of the tennis guys would disagree. I don't know. But you just think that's a huge grind. He's saying that he can't remember the last time they had a practice. And they don't even do practices because they need to give their body rest in between games and back to backs and so forth. That's intense. And so when Rich Paul was sort of saying that like Ben Simmons has got burnt out, I can understand how a lot of guys just get to a point where they think, wow, is it worth it? You know,
Yeah.
and then, I think I had a realization when I was a teenager, like I had dreams of trying to push into the pro levels and, was always a fringe too far down the bench to be able to, to make that a realistic jump. And it just got to a point where it's like, I see the work that it takes to be on this team. I know the work that it takes to be like the sixth man. I could be a reliable sixth man. But the only guys who are going to the next level is like maybe the number one points getter in the team. And then
Yeah.
of all of our teams on this level, we're taking one, if one, to the next level. And you just look at it and you think, realistically, wow. And so to be able to win a championship, to be able to play in the like these are really, really minute sort of like odds to be able to go. And as somebody who's felt burnout, I can understand how that could get into you a little bit. And so I have
Yeah.
it for him, but
Oh, for sure. But I think what Rich Paul said was important. Some players are in it for what they can do for the game, and some players are in it for what the game can do for them. And I think that's very true. Speaking of like the grind, do you know how many playoff games LeBron James has played?
tell me.
92. That's almost 4 extra seasons of basketball that he has
Yeah, right.
at an intense. So how many seasons has he played? It's like in total. Is he in his 21st year? But you add
He's got the 23rd patch, right?
20 oh, that's right. So really he's played 27 year seasons worth of games with his playoffs as well.
That's
Yeah.
it's phenomenal. But going back to your point, he's a guy who understood in high school and created a narrative that he was born for this.
Mm,
Like he was born to not just play the game, but he was born to be the game, to be the king. He set up all those narratives because he full on believes all of that stuff. And he plays at such a level that we all believe it too. It's just,
yeah. And
that's
some would say that he mines the game. Hey, plug. Anyhow,
nice.
thank you. I was been working on that one. The Warriors coming up. They've got the Miami Heat tomorrow. Kerr
That's
does
gonna be
not
in it.
have a great record against Spoelstra.
And the Miami Heat have been balling lately.
Yeah.
Some good wins
So
they've picked out. So
and it's the front end of a back to back. They got the Mavericks on Friday. Saturday, Friday our time. We're in Australia.
Cooper Flag back.
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah, sprained ankle. It'd be fun to see them. To see him
Yeah,
play.
I hope he's back because if he's not, the Warriors will probably lose because take them lightly. But yes, so the Miami Heat, the Mavericks, the Timberwolves, that will be a great game. It's nice they've got some time off between the Mavericks and the Timberwolves. And then more time off. Wow, so they've got some back-to-backs and then next week they only play like 2 games. So that's awesome. So I'm hoping, by next week we'll still be on this mountaintop and it'll be a great Cochrane show because as the Warriors go, the Cochrane show goes.
Yeah. Hopefully we're not too despondent after the Heat and the Timberwolves. But yeah, no, it'd be a good test for this team at this stage. And make sure that Jimmy Butler's gonna want to play against Miami. So that'll be a fire game.
Hmm. Jimmy's going to go for it. That's right. Yeah. He took the last game off with personal reasons to prepare for the Miami Heat.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. I don't know what was going on in his life, so I shouldn't make jokes about it. But that is the Cochrane Show. Thank you for talking Warriors, and go Dubs.
Let's hit it.